Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In case you're new here, my name is Laura. I am a PhD student of comparative literature in Germany, and on this channel I talk about classics from all over the world. And today I want to introduce you to 10 of my favorite classics for winter or Christmas time as well. And I thought, what could one read during this time? The classics that I like to read during December or January are ones that are rather cheerful, also some children's stories, because they make me laugh and they make me feel warm and happy and remind me of all the good things going on in the world. When you know that there's happiness and good things to find in the books, then reading becomes a worthwhile experience. So that's why I want to introduce these 10 classics to you. And I'm going to start with children's classics, and then I'm going to talk about very, I think, widely known classics that I love and that I think are actually a very good fit for December, and I will tell you why. And afterwards I will also talk about some classics that you wouldn't probably expect in December, but I think they are a good fit as well because they're really funny. And in the end I will talk about two Christmas stories that I really loved and that I want to recommend to you. So, the first two books I want to talk about were both published in the year 1908. The first one is called Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery, and it's about Anne. She is an orphan and she's sent mistakenly to an older couple in the countryside in Canada, and she's going to live with them, and at first everything is very difficult because they didn't expect her to be a girl. They expected to get a boy, and then they have to live together and make a living as well. So Anne gets to know all the people around there. She goes to school, she makes friends, and she just adjusts herself to all the conditions around her. But as she's very cheerful and high-spirited, everyone's going to love her after some time, and that's really nice to read because Anne is a wonderful character and she reminds us of everything good that's going on in the world. And that's why I really love the book. There's a whole series to it as well. I think there's actually around 9 novels, and they also tell the story of Anne growing up after some time. If you're interested in that, I can recommend those as well. And the next one I want to talk about is called The Wind in the Willows. Even the title is really beautiful. It's by Kenneth Grahame. It was also published in 1908. It tells the story of Mole, Ratty and Badger, 3 anthropomorphic animals. They can talk, and they try to help Mr. Toad, a toad who becomes obsessed with motor cars. And actually there's not much more going on, but they are really lovable characters as well, and it's a very wonderful story to read. So if you're interested in a classic that's a little bit different from other Christmas classics or winter classics, then you could go for that one. The next one I want to talk about is Peter Pan, written by J.M. Barrie and published as a novel in 1911. And it is about Peter Pan, as you know, a little boy who can fly from Neverland, and he meets Wendy and Michael, and he invites them to Neverland, where he has this crew of the Lost Boys, and they experience a lot of adventures there. They meet pirates and fairies and also Captain Hook, and there's so much going on, and it's such a gripping tale, I think, that it's always worth a read or also a reread, especially if you only know the movies or the movie. And I really recommend that too. I love it. The next one would be Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, written or published between 1868 to 1869. And it follows the lives of the 4 March sisters, like Meg, Jo, Beth and Amy. Maybe you've seen the movie as well. Their age difference is not so big, so they're really close in a way, but also have quite a lot of difficulties, and they have to handle their daily lives and handle love and friendship, but also things like poverty and looking for jobs and just living together and finding their ways through life. And I think it's really beautifully told, especially Also on the topic of like living out your individual dream before or against the background of your own family and the expectations of society. And I think that's really well written, and it's a classic that I would also always go for in December, I think, because I think it just suits it perfectly. Book number 5 would be Anna Karenina. I know it's a classic that you probably know, but I am always up for a reread of that one as well. It was published in 1878 and it's by Leo Tolstoy. And it's a tragic love story actually between the married Anna Karenina and the Count Vronsky. Wonderfully written, it's easy to read. I think it's a lot easier to read than, for example, War and Peace. And I think that's also because it's such a lengthy 2-volume novel, other than Anna Karenina, which is really easy to get into, and just a great fit for winter as well, I think, because just Russian classics are always a good fit for winter, I think. The next one would be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I know this book has been talked about so much, but I love it so much that I really want to recommend it to you as well. It was published in 1813, and it's about Elizabeth Bennet, a young woman who lives together with her family in the countryside in England, and she meets Mr. Darcy, wealthy man from the higher society, and at first he seems very selfish, egoistic, and unfriendly to her, and that's why she refuses to get into contact with him more. But after some time they get to know each other, and both of them realize that the other person is a lot more wonderful than they thought. And then their love story develops, and it's so wonderfully written. And also, like, Jane Austen's humor and her witty comments on society and the times she's living in, they are just worth a read. And I think also the love story is not cheesy at all. It's one of the most elegantly told stories, I think, that I ever read. So please go for that if you haven't read it yet. It's really worth a read. And also the movie by director Joe Wright, it's also worth a watch. The next one, number 7, is The Importance of Being Earnest from 1895, written by Oscar Wilde. And other than the picture of Dorian Gray, this is not a novel but a play, and it's not half as gloomy or dark as the novel. It's really rather light-hearted, very funny. It's a comedy, that's also why it's so funny, I think, but also because Oscar Wilde really knows how to deal with humor. And it's about Ernest, the protagonist, who maintains a fictitious persona because he wants to escape some burdensome societal expectations. And that's when everything gets very confusing, because there's him and his friend, and they have this, like, he has this other personality that he uses in the city other than the one that he uses in the countryside, because he wants to be free and live out his life freely. But then women fall in love with Ernest, and although Ernest doesn't really even exist, and it's really confusing, everything about that. But it gets to a very funny end, and it's just so funny that it's really worth a read. The next novel is a little bit different because it's a lot more modern. From 1997, it's Hogfather by Terry Pratchett, one of the Discworld novels, and it's from the Death series. So it's about the Hogfather, who is in the Discworld, the same as Santa Claus in a way. He's the person who comes at Christmas and brings presents to the children, but one year he goes missing and there's no Hogfather, so there's no one coming to bring the children their presents. And then this is when Death thinks, oh, someone has to do something about that, and he tries to act as the Hogfather, and he dresses himself up, and he practices his ho 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 so that he can bring the presents to the children. And I don't want to talk about it too much because you just have to read it as well, but it's really funny. Terry Pratchett's humor is wonderful as well. It's very different from the one of Oscar Wilde because he knows how to make satirical comments on things going on in our society, and some of them are really accurate by these days as well, I think, and it's just wonderful. And Death is also a very funny character, I think. I love this character so much, and you don't really have to have read any of the other novels from the Discworld series, I think, because I also only read one before. I think it was Maud, the fourth of the novels. Hogfather is the ninth in the series, but I think even like the biggest fans of the Discworld wouldn't recommend reading them in the way they were published. Just read Hogfather if you're interested to get into Terry Pratchett's world. And the next one would be Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but not only this one, also the other Christmas stories that he wrote. I think there's a collection called Dickens at Christmas. Number 9 would be A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You probably know the story because I think almost everyone knows the story, but it's about Ebenezer Scrooge. He is a very miserable rich man. He lives alone and he despises everyone around him, but one night before Christmas he gets visited by 3 ghosts, one from the past, one from the present, one from the future, and they teach him very valuable lessons and show him how he has lived his life before, how he's living his life at the moment, and how he would be going to live his life in case he goes on the way he lives. And that's what makes him change his behavior, and it's really well written. I love it. It's just, I mean, it's a little cheesy, but it's also very true, I think, because sometimes you also need other people to show you what's wrong with your behavior and what you're doing and how or where this will lead to in case you don't stop. And that's why it's really worth a read, I think. But there's also other stories, like Christmas stories by Dickens. There's a collection called Dickens at Christmas. I will link it below because there's really wonderful stories in them as well, and I think it's worth checking them out. Number 10 would be The Nutcracker by E.T. Hoffmann. E.T. Hoffmann is a writer I told you about in my video about the Sandman. I will link it below as well and up here as well. He is a romantic writer, and the story he's telling here is about Clara, a girl who relieves a magical nutcracker for Christmas and then embarks on a fantastical journey to the land of sweets. And it's very nice and adventurous, and maybe you know the ballet that was made from this, like adapted into a ballet. It's a Tchaikovsky ballet, so the music of the ballet is also one thing I would recommend. I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe there was 1 or 2 books or stories that you don't know yet and you would like to read, or maybe something you would like to reread. In case you have any questions about the books that I talked about, or if you have some recommendations for me or also for others as well, please leave them down below in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel in case you haven't done that yet. And I'm looking forward to see you in my next video. Bye bye!